Now do the roll call. Dan Brady,
Provide water for this meeting.
Tom Campenny,
Here.
Vicki Davis,
Here.
David Hafner, Beth Kavinsky, John Keller,
Hello.
Merritt Matheson,
Here.
Scott Turnbull, and Jim Snedeker. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our June 25th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? They're passed. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? All in favor?
Moved.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Staff will now update us on the parcels presented during our previous meetings. Mike and staff, please address the tax revenue starting January 1st.
Michael Houston, Senior Project Manager in the Martin County Environmental Resource Division. I have Stephanie Murley here to provide an update in terms of how the money that's been generated by the tax.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Murley. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget for Martin County. And to date, the sales tax was approved in November, and it began collections in January of 2025. And today, I just pulled it just a few minutes ago, we have collected $10,144,233. And those are for collections through June of 2025. The state takes a few months to remit their monthly revenues for sales tax. So it's usually about 3 months behind. So we can expect to collect about $12 million through the end of September for this fiscal year 2025, which ends on 9/30. And we are hoping to have anticipated collections in FY26 of around $20 million. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer it. But otherwise, around 10.2 million so far.
Thank you. Staff, please review those properties previously voted on by the ELOC and which we submitted to the Board of County Commissioners.
You want to do that?
Put it on your agenda.
Okay. You took that to the board.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I can. Okay. Good morning, Sebastian Poprowski, Senior Assistant County Attorney. We brought before the board a way to, I would say, do a faster track to close the deal with Be a Man Buy Land in Palmar, in the Palmar area, to purchase those acres. We needed to get board approval. Normally, we have to then come back to the board so that the board accepts the deeds. It's a separate hearing. We sort of rolled this into a way that we don't have to come back to the board the second time. We're currently reviewing the deeds. We're looking for any post-settlement. We entered into settlement agreement in November of last year. Any encumbrances, the real estate department's doing that, going through all that. And as I said, we did that so we wouldn't have to come back before the Board of County Commissioners one more time to formally accept land via a meeting. So I guess that's the update that we have on that.
And in terms of Barbie Ranch, on August 26th, we went in front of the board and got approval to use sales tax funds for the acquisition of a conservation easement at Barbie Ranch. The actual acreage of the easement we've since found is going to be about 1,700 acres out of the 1,900-acre property. And at this point, we're waiting on the state to approve the agreement. It goes in front of the governor and cabinet on September 30th, I believe. And once that happens, we can finalize the agreement and then incorporate our funding and get the acquisition of that conservation easement completed in the next few months.
I have a question.
What question?
Actually,
If the state approves it, does the state pay for part of this?
Yes. So we don't have a final tally, but what we've been asked is for about a $5 million contribution on what would be a $17 million easement.
5 million from the state,
5 million from the county.
from the county, and the
And then
state
12
paid
million from the
67 million?
The state would pay 12 million, the county would pay about 5 million.
Oh, I misunderstood, didn't hear you. State will pay 12 and the county 5.
Correct.
And council, what's the timeline roughly on the BMN by land?
We were waiting for the finance department. There had to be an amendment to the budget brought before the board to account for these additional monies. So we had to wait for that. And the real estate department's still looking at each parcel by parcel. So I would say after that review is done, we can probably proceed forward.
Mr. Chair, you said there was 1,900 acres originally on the Barbie Ranch?
That's the total property acreage, but since the conservation easement is so restricted, they've asked to leave out 200 acres right around their home site that won't be subject to the conservation easement.
Okay.
So the timeline, just to go back to that on the BMN by land topic, there was one parcel originally and last time. How many parcels are there in total that are being evaluated?
It's over, I think, 300.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Takes a little bit of time.
Yes. Any other comments on those properties that have been brought before the Board of County Commissioners? Mike? Is that it? Okay. The staff and I have drafted this process that you have in front of you, but it's not cut in stone. So after we finish this meeting, we'd like to fine tune the process, as you'll notice we've already done for this one, and we welcome feedback.
Well, Mr. Chair, you have to follow the agenda that was printed and published. You just can't make believe you have a new agenda. You can add these questions under our comments or on the staff comments, but you just can't ignore the published agenda because this is the published agenda.
Got it.
So
Thank you,
I
Mr.
think we need
Campini.
to follow the published agenda, and then we can do whatever you want with your other comments during the meeting.
Got it. So let's go back to each parcel, which really goes through Mr. Campini's sagacious counsel. If we review the ranking process, Mike, and staff, then the presentation, let's go through that, which will pretty much follow the format that all of you have in front of you.
And I actually have some slides on the review process incorporated into the start of my presentation.
Okay, so please proceed.
Okay. So today is our Environmental Lands Oversight Committee presentation. I did want to throw a little plug in that we have a website that we've been developing. It's on the old Martin County Forever webpage, but it has all kinds of information, anything you could possibly want to know, and probably a lot more in regards to this program. It will look at the history. It looks at the history of our program. It looks at the properties that we are evaluating. We'll have web pages associated with that. There'll be maps on there and just all kinds of information. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, it's martincountyforever.com. So for today's meeting, I've drawn up a map that shows all the different parcels that we're going to be looking at today. And in total, we're looking at 9,000 acres, roughly 9,000 acres of land that'll be up for consideration. These properties include areas within all 4 of our acquisition zones that we've discussed previously. And the acreage varies from 3,500 acres in the Palm Beach Heights area to as small as 1 acre in Perry Beach Addition. And it's a pretty good cross-section throughout the county. And just a little reminder of what our process is. We have a nomination form gets submitted to the Environmental Resource Division. We look at that nomination and we see that if it follows with the ordinance number 1221 and that it is within one of our acquisition zones. And the other main thing is we have to have a willing seller letter. So we have to have some indication from the owner that if we go through this process, get this property ranked and approved for sales tax funds, that they would be interested in selling their property or at least entering into a conservation easement. Once that happens, then we present the proposal in front of the Environmental Lands Oversight Committee for review and ranking, and that's the step we're at here today. Once that occurs, we then bring those projects before the Board of County Commissioners for review and vote on whether to proceed with acquisition. If that happens, we enter into due diligence and negotiations. And finally, if all those things happen and we can then bring it back to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. The purpose of our meeting is to review environmental information on these nominated parcels, to fill in our project ranking forms, and then to make recommendations to the Martin County Board of County Commissioners on whether to move forward with acquisition. Here's our scoring sheet. We've discussed this before, but basically we have the series of 10 factors that we're looking at, but we are not, and this is important to note for those who weren't here before, Category 7 estimated cost per acre, we're just going to leave those as being a 0. So we're not evaluating these properties according to that, based on feedback that we received from the Oversight Committee. So in essence, all you guys are going to do is you're going to fill in those project scores for each property, and then there is a weighted methodology that we're using so that we'll then take that information, your scores, we'll plug in their weighting unit to come up with the total weighted score for each property for each committee member. And this is just a tabulation sheet that shows how this is going to work. So this is for the first nomination we're looking at today, Palm Beach Heights. So it has all of your names and it has each of those categories. We'll fill those in to come up with those weighted scores, and then we'll be developing a total project score for each property. And this just shows by property how this will work. So it all gets added up for a total score. And then on the right-hand column, there'll be a rank. So we'll rank all these projects. You'll notice at the bottom of this project ranking forms that it mentions Barbie Ranch and the Palmar Settlement. What we have to do is we want to make a cumulative list. So we want to add all these properties into that to come up with a new ranked score from 1 to what would essentially be 18. Does anyone have any questions on that process?
Just one, as we're ranking these projects, we're judging them on themselves, not compared to another project, right? We're scoring them on itself, on its own merits.
Yes and no. Like, you're welcome to change your scores based on what you see from another project proposal. That's why you're going to do all the ranking forms for all the property, and you're not going to properties, and you're going to hand them in at the end once all the properties, we've gone through all the properties, so you can make changes as you see fit.
So what we'll be doing is provisionally ranking each, and then we'll have discussion following that. You may wish to revise your initial ranking at that point based upon the discussion.
Thank you.
If I could make a request also on this project ranking score, if you could add a column at the end, even though it's not part of the rankings, that indicates total acreage of the parcels that are approved or up to be approved,
Okay.
that would be helpful, I think.
Yep, we'll get that in the minutes, and then I'll look back at those minutes and get that incorporated.
Michael, I have a question. On all the properties, you eliminated some of the criteria, 1, 2, or 3 criteria. Did those automatically get a 0 score?
Yeah, the only one we've eliminated is Category 7, and those will just get a 0.
Okay.
I have a question. The last two, Barbie Ranch and Palmar, they've already been approved by the commission, correct?
Correct.
So I know you want to keep them ranked, but what happens if something comes up and all of a sudden Palmar no longer is number 2,
Right.
even though we've already had the money for it? You're doing a budget amendment. I mean, should they even be on this project rankings at this point? Because they've already been approved by the commission, the money's already been approved.
Well, you guys are the Oversight Committee. I mean, I like the idea of putting the scores on there. If you want to, I'll leave it up to the discretion of the Oversight Committee whether or not you feel that we want one list or have separate lists for each time that you come forward and do a ranking meeting.
Is there, pardon me, is there any precedent for this, Mike, in terms of that question?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So,
Council, is there any question relating to that process?
No, sir. All I would say is that obviously for Barbie Ranch and Palmar, the Palmar settlement, those scores cannot be changed. Those are done. So I would revert back to whether you would prefer to have one list with two different columns or two separate lists, where that, so you don't see one or the with the other.
So my suggestion would be, everybody please weigh in on this. If we wait until we've gone through these, see where we stand, and then discuss it. How do you all feel? Any comments? Merritt?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think Tom is right to an extent. There has to be a removal process, and it should either be once the commission has approved our ranking, or at least once the deal's gone through and been finalized, or perhaps two separate columns, or three, the current list, commission's approval, and then a final deal. But to lump them all together, it doesn't make sense to me.
The one thing I would say is that obviously the county is moving forward with the Palmar settlement and Barbie Ranch, but we could rank all these projects and then come back to you in 6 months or at whatever point with a series of new projects, and those things, they'll still be outstanding projects at that point. So there is value, I think, then in having a overall ranked list that incorporates what's already been ranked versus what hasn't been. And these, we could be working on some of these for years. So this isn't,
And that's all fine, but
Yeah.
once we've ranked it, and once the commission has taken action,
yeah,
unless you bring it back to us for some reason,
right,
then we shouldn't see it again.
okay,
And I think it should be on a separate list.
yeah.
It's okay.
That makes sense.
And that way, because we don't want to re-rank something
Yeah.
again.
Well, once these, once we move through this process, then the county is going to have to, we can look at these scores ourselves. So, at that point, we don't need to bring it back to the Oversight Committee.
Yeah, let's keep it simple.
Yeah,
And let's just delete the Barbie Ranch and Palmar settlement at this point.
Okay.
And then perhaps we can have a discussion offline, however you want to do this, and just figure out what we do. But
okay. Well, for now, and it's still interesting to have it on there, so you'll, at the end, be able to see how these new proposals compare, but we won't rank those.
yeah, because
won't
that just
incorporate
opens up
those
a can of worms.
Yep,
And,
Okay.
yeah,
that sounds good.
okay. So please go ahead and proceed with
Yep.
the,
So there's last time you guys were here, we were looking at the Barbie Ranch project, which was a conservation easement with the Florida Forever program. Today, we are going to be bringing forward 3 proposals that are coming through the Rural and Family Lands Program, which is a state program offered through the Florida Department of Agricultural and Community Service. I think I got that right, FDACS. So they're a little different in how they operate. They were established in 2001. They use perpetual agricultural conservation easements. So it's important to state that it's still a conservation easement. It still prevents those areas from being developed. But the main purpose is actually more to protect working agricultural lands while also conserving natural resources. The land still remains in private ownership and in production, and easements are purchased by the state, approved by the governor and cabinet, and there's no public access requirements. So these properties will not have public access in the future. So I wanted to compare what Florida Forever and the Rural and Family Lands Program, how they are similar and how they are different. So whereas the Rural and Family Lands Program wants to keep land in production while conserving resources, the main purpose of Florida Forever is to protect natural resources, water, habitat, scenic, and recreational values. They're administered still by the state and have to get approval by the government and cabinet, governor and cabinet. They're, once again, rural and family lands can do conservation easements but also incorporate agriculture. And whereas Florida Forever can do a mix of fee simple so they can acquire the property outright or put conservation easements on it. The selection criteria, once again, instead of just conservation values, it looks at agricultural productivity, threat of conversion or development, and compatibility with working lands. And either can allow for ongoing ranching, farming activities, but the Florida Forever easements tend to be stricter on development, and once again, they're more designed to protect ecosystems, water, recharge, and scenic values. And Florida Forever can have public access incorporated into their easements. Is there any questions about that?
Everything we're talking about would be perpetual and irrevocable, correct?
Correct.
Perpetuity, okay.
Yeah.
And we do not have any replication of what took place in Palm Beach County, is that correct?
Correct. These are
Okay.
all irrevocable. They would never be able to be removed, but if it could be more just a working ranch.
Got it. I just want to be sure that I got this,
Yes.
first time I've seen it. I just want to be sure that there's no confusion on this in perpetuity and irrevocable, and that we definitely do not have under any condition take place what took place in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, the ordinance does not allow for revoking or removing the conservation easement status from an easement with the Rural and Family Lands Program.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is there any way that we could acquire a copy of this spreadsheet
Sure.
for the committee?
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We can send that out with the minutes.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? All right, then we're ready to start looking at our first proposal. And once again, so how this is going to work is I'll go through the proposal, and at the end, we'll have public comment and board discussion on each proposal. So the Palm Beach Heights area, it's roughly about 8,000 acres, of which there are still about 3,500 acres in private ownership, while at this point with the recent transactions that have occurred, there's close to 4,500 acres in public ownership. So we're at about 60+% in terms of our ownership in this area. We care about this area because it's a connector between large state-owned conservation tracts. We've had a significant investment from the state, from the county, and the South Florida Water Management Districts in terms of acquiring and protecting this area. And we do that because it has some of the most high-quality wetland systems found in Martin County. In addition, parts of it are headwaters to the wild and scenic northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River. And I put this map together to show the two areas that are in question. It looks a little confusing. One of the issues we had is that we're still, the transactions that we've done out there recently are so numerous and large that we haven't been able to incorporate that into our mapping system. So the areas in the chimney are actually not going to be in government ownership before, but I incorporated this just to give you an idea of about where we're at in terms of the ownership. So the green are things that are in public ownership, and the areas that are clear that don't have a polygon are ones that are currently in private ownership. So it's just to see that we're actually in some of the areas close to being able to put together some contiguous manageable blocks. And I incorporated this map just so you can see, once you remove that, what the areas look like and get an idea of kind of the habitats that you find in this area. So you can see that there's really extensive wetland systems, good natural communities throughout these areas. You can see its relationship to Hungerland, wildlife and environmental area, which are on the west side, north of Beeline, and also to the east side of these properties. It falls within the Palmar Acquisition Zone, and it's within the Florida Forever program, lists this area as an essential acquisition. So all the areas in yellow represent areas that are within the Florida Forever program, the state land buying program. So you can see it does fall within a Florida Forever program for Palmar. In addition, another big state tracking system and state prioritization system is the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And it gets a little confusing. All the areas are in yellow are areas of the Florida Wildlife Corridor that have not been acquired. So anything green or orange or that blue color are areas in the Florida Wildlife Corridor that have already been acquired at this point. So that just gives you an idea that it's in a Florida Wildlife Corridor. You can see how connected it is to all these other lands that are being prioritized for acquisition. And a separate state metric is the Florida Ecological Greenway Network, which lists it as a priority too. In terms of funding partners, we have been working with the South Florida Water Management District for 20 years now, buying lots in Palmar. We haven't bought as many recently, but we have an agreement in place, and we would enter in discussions with the Water Management District for some kind of cost-sharing agreement moving forward. In terms of the habitat quality, most of the area, about 90%, is relatively unaltered natural areas. There is a ditch system that bisects through this area, and you can see that on this photograph. So each of those is a ditch and canal. It does not actually connect to anything. And so according to FNA, they weren't sure what impact it is having on the hydrology, but you can see that you have some relatively intact wetland systems running throughout that area and some good hydrology. In terms of the areas we looked at, the eastern area is having an extensive issue with off-road vehicle use and small encampments. But overall, the area appears to be in good to even excellent condition. In terms of management considerations, managing this area would be pretty difficult right now because of the small lot sizes. It's only a quarter acre to an acre in size. Many, but not all, of the surrounding parcels are in government ownership. And as many of you are aware, there's an issue with these off-road vehicle use in the area. There's invasive exotic vegetation prevalent in sections of Palmar. And once again, it would be difficult to complete management responsibilities unless we're able to put together some larger contiguous government-owned lots. In terms of rare and listed species, the map on the left shows the different habitat communities. There's not a lot of areas that would be considered to be rare habitat, but there are some species that could be expected to be found based on FNA's predictor model, which includes eastern indigo snake, sand-owl cranes, wood storks, and snail kites. There really isn't much development potential of this area other than the fact that you have these off-road vehicles and these small encampments, which are having a significant environmental impact on the area and represent a large threat to the natural communities found within Palm Beach Heights. In terms of recreational opportunities, the county has long prioritized creating this Jupiter Indiantown Trail that would extend all the way from Indiantown Road, pretty close to the Loxahatchee River, all the way out to Indiantown. We have about 5 miles of that are open at this time, the eastern segments that go all the way out into the start of Hungryland. But the county has long wanted to continue that on to the west so that it would go out all the way out to Indiantown. So, you know, we would have to acquire all the lots along this or be able to get easements in order to create this connection. And that's the end of that presentation. So we can now take public comment and committee discussion. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Public comments, please. Zach?
Very similar to what we approved our last meeting and the commission agreed to buy.
Yes, very
Same
similar.
thing.
But perhaps, Mike, is it appropriate for you to comment on that at this point or at the end?
Let's wait for public.
Take
Okay.
total comment.
Go ahead, Zach. Thank you.
Zach Gaza, be a man by land.
We can't hear you, Zach.
Zach Gaza, be a man by land. Good morning. I came for general public comment. I didn't realize that the public comment was specific to each proposal. So my question is, can I comment on anything right now, or do I have to wait till the end of the meeting for that?
Question for council.
It's up to the board. How normally, public comment is either reserved, general public comment is either reserved for the beginning or the end. And mostly comment is limited to this topic that's just been presented. But, I mean, we didn't take public comment, general public comment in the beginning, so you can open that up, or you can wait to the end. It's up to
Okay,
you
I'd like to
guys.
open it up, so Zach, go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding the last meeting and what your committee approved, substantial, or half of that was properties that the county later agreed to at their commission meeting purchase based on your recommendation. As your committee is the Oversight Committee, and I believe that the half-cent sales tax was passed in this county because there was an Oversight Committee, I have noticed some issues with the actual goings-on of the county after your recommendation and after the Board of County Commissioners' approval. My situation is unique, as there was a settlement agreement that the county is obligated to purchase these properties. The Board of County Commissioners and staff chose to take that purchase responsibility and guide it through the sales tax process, which then involved your committee. The settlement agreement requires the county to close on these properties by February of 2026. However, since they navigated this process through the half-cent sales tax, the money that they're sitting on, over $10 million, is more than enough to close on the Palomar properties. I've already submitted the signed deed to Sebastian. He has it in his possession. I have the email where the properties are approved. Everything's done. If you look at the video of the last Board of County Commissioner meeting, they're intent on pushing this to February. My concern is it's not their money to sit on. And there's some bad blood. Sebastian himself was the opposing counsel in the litigation between myself and the county when they blocked access to Palomar, which led to this settlement. So it's my understanding that there's now some ethical concerns with the Board of County Commissioner and staff regarding the closing of these properties. The money's there. Your Oversight Committee approved it. The Board of County Commissioners approved it, but they refused to close. So my emails go unanswered. I can't get any records requests. Nobody wants to talk to me. I'll keep pushing the county as far as I need to because this is going to jeopardize this process. This, this half-cent sales tax, the money's there. Properties have been approved. The county, what's the next step? No one knows. You have the deed. The properties that are approved is quitclaim deed. They're not waiting on anything. That's my general comment. My comment as to this specific parcel, which I didn't plan on commenting, but there were notes made about the Jupiter Indian Town grade, which is a public road. The Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution, which is the last thing that I could find, that it's a public road and it remains a public road. To obtain easements or ownership of properties is going to be a tricky situation. I own quite a bit of property that fronts on Jupiter Indian Town Road, which is a public road. And to turn that into a trail you can't have through traffic and bicyclists and hikers. It's going to be difficult. It's only 30 feet wide. So I think that your committee should take that into consideration with the purchase of these other Palomar properties as far as the use of the Indian Town Road or the old Jupiter Indian Town grade for scenic byway, whatever the plan is.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Yeah, hold on for a second.
No, a technical question. We're doing 3-minute not to you, Zach. 3-minute comments, so who's keeping the 3-minute?
I'm keeping an eye on it. Thank you, Thomas. Yes,
Okay.
there's a clock right up there. So and my only request to council would be whatever you can do to expedite the process to address Zach's concerns would be appreciated. It's really beyond the capability of us to do anything beyond what we've already done, it seems to me. So, but we understand Zach's comments. They're duly noted, and we proceed from there.
And I just want to clear up a prior comment that I made. And I understand Mr. Gaza's situation is unique as compared to the other properties that you're all scoring. And the county has decided to use this funding vehicle for that litigation. It is currently ongoing litigation, but I'd like to remind the board that not 1 cent has yet been spent of ELOC money, as far as I know, on any property. We have scored it. We are going through the process. As I stated, we have, I've brought before the board the ability to fast track it so that I don't have to go back before the board. And it's actually 429 separate lots. So our real estate team is looking at that. This is not their only project. It's not their only job. We are moving it as fast as we can. So,
Okay.
And I will remind the committee that we just reviewed and ranked these, it was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So government can be slow sometimes, so.
Yeah, and 429 is quite a few parcels, but a very understanding of Zach's comments. So would ask that you do everything you can to expedite the process.
understood.
And, and back to Mr. Campenni's comment, yeah, went beyond the 3 minutes, but I think that I'm not going to be a stickler when it comes to that, especially when something's as material as it is relating to Mr. Gaza. So, thank you. Now, at this point, the committee, what we can do is discuss it generally, put a provisional ranking on it, and then we'll come back later. So, would anyone like to take the lead on that, or do you prefer to wait until we're at the end?
No, I'd just say it's identical to what we approved the last time, and it seemed like we ought to get going.
It's really not identical.
No.
We had one single.
Similar.
Last time.
Well, I'm not sure if that's material. My take is that having visited the property last week, it's a beautiful piece of property, or in the aggregate. It is being adversely impacted. As you enter the property, you'll see that the signs, there are these little signs that are filled with bullet holes. So people are going in there shooting the place up, and God bless them, they're permitted to shoot as they wish, but it's pretty clear it's a free fire zone. It is a beautiful area. Beth?
Yeah, I have a question on some of the material that was provided with respect to the Palmar Water Control District, and whether or not the canals that are going through some of the properties, are they owned or only easement to Palmar Water Control District? And will that provide or pose any difficulties with respect to access?
They're easements.
They're easements, okay.
From dedicated to the Palmar Water Control District.
Okay.
And they're specifically for maintaining the works of the district and their role for flood control, so there's no dedicated access along those. And that's why, you'd have to get contiguous manageable blocks to be able to provide access to some of those areas.
Okay, thank you.
So if I wanted to go to these lots, I could drive in, or do I have to walk in, or do I have to bicycle in? Can I use my horse? Can I use my horse? How do I get there, Michael?
Well, the county considers these to be, the ones that are in public ownership are accessible via what we would typically allow for passive-based recreation, which would be hiking, biking, equestrian uses. So the rest of that is all tied up in all kinds of legal issues that we're not prepared to discuss today.
And the lots, as you explained, are from a quarter acre to about an acre, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they're owned by many different people, or just one person in this particular?
I believe there's something like 2,000 owners. So,
So this would be something we would be doing over a decade or more, probably?
yes.
So you're asking us to approve it as a, but you don't think this will happen anytime soon, that the public will say, we have Palmar. This is only a very, very small beginning, and it's much different than just buying land from Be a Man.
Yeah, but we do have, at one point, we were paying just an appraised value that was $1,000, $1,500 an acre. So nobody is going to have an incentive to sell their property at that price. So we do have board direction that allows us even now to go above appraised value. And so we can be much more competitive with offers that we make to the public to attempt to acquire those lots.
So you're actually using the ELOC money, but it's something that the board has considered doing for quite some time, as it did with
Correct.
Be a Man Buy Land.
But we're out of the money that was being used to acquire those properties. So we would need to use sales tax funds in order to continue to acquire lots out there. So that's why we want the ELOC to weigh in and make a recommendation on whether that's a program that you feel the county should continue to focus on with this new sales tax fund.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and I agree that we should buy these lots.
And I'm sorry, I'll just jump in here. This would be a very, as you said, Mr. Campenny, as you alluded to, it would be very piecemeal. It would be maybe a quarter lot pops up here and there, or an acre pops up here and there. So we're not talking about a huge expenditure at once.
It's basically the green light to proceed with the process. Right.
I'd like to make a
other
jump, just
comment?
I have a
more
comment.
aware generally, this property, but actually all 15 of them, I spent yesterday time with John Mayle touring all of these properties, so I have some personal look at them and some idea of what each one of them are. And this is another beautiful property that would be wonderful to have.
Jim?
And
Sorry.
Beth?
I just want to say, I guess for the committee's sake, that again, these properties have been on the state and the county lists for approval or for acquisition for quite some time, several decades at least, and have made those, the state and the county have made inroads into buying parcels in the Palmar area. I think the difference here is that we're approving the ELOC monies for that acquisition as opposed to other county funds.
Very good point, Beth. Merritt?
My only comment is just that we need to keep in mind this somewhat blanket approval, while I do support it, follows everything that the ordinance for the sales tax fund is meant for. It's clearly desired by the state and the county. Doesn't follow the exact flow chart where we don't have letters of willingness to sell, or do you, from these roughly 2,000 property owners at the moment?
Well, we certainly don't have 2,000, but I don't have the exact total, but I think there's 30 to 40 that have contacted the county, and we could
Move.
move forward with acquisition.
So there would be a large clump, or a small clump out of that 2,000 that could move relatively quickly, but then this would be blanket, the county would go back and contact the rest of them. Whereas everything else we look at today, there's already been communication with all the property owners and a willingness to either enter a CE or fee simple acquisition.
Poinciana Gardens, which will be coming up
Yes.
later, there's some similarities. But we do have one landowner in there that owns like 40 to 50 lots, I want to say. I don't know the exact total, that did provide us a willing seller letter.
Okay.
So, but those are the only two that are,
Slightly
kind of
different from
weird.
the,
Yeah.
the program because there's so many small parcels and parcel owners.
correct.
Any more comments? So please go ahead, members, and rank it on a provisional basis. We'll adjust those later after we go through all of them. Mike, please present the next parcel.
So our next project we're bringing forward today is the Thal Family Partnership. So this is right near this area we're just talking about in Palmar. It's about a 1,499 acre property that has large cypress and slough wetland systems. And it's part of this huge contiguous interconnected system of conservation lands that really extends all the way from the Indian River Lagoon to Lake Okeechobee. And it's in areas that can be considered to be the headwaters to the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River. This shows that it falls within the Palmar acquisition zone, and it shows how it's kind of at the west end of that Palmar acquisition zone. And it also gives you a sense of all the state lands that are around within this area. This project is also within a Florida Forever footprint, and we received correspondence from Florida Forever indicating that it would score well according to their metrics.
When you say go well, Mike, what's that mean? It would be,
Probably score well.
oh, okay, got it.
That according to their metrics, it would be, it would score fairly well.
Got it. Thank you.
This, once again, shows the Florida Wildlife Corridor. You can see where it is within the system, and you can also see that it's part of this interconnected system of conservation lands that goes all the way out pretty much to Lake Okeechobee from the Indian River Lagoon. So that's kind of unique. There's not too many places that can boast that. And it's also part of a system that extends from West Palm Beach up into Central Florida. The Florida Ecological Greenway Network listed as a priority 2. This would most likely be a fee simple acquisition. There is a possibility of also having a conservation easement on this. We feel that there's a good possibility of receiving Florida Forever funding, and we'd like to talk to Ducks Unlimited, which is a group that helps to acquire land. It's like a land trust and restoration-focused organization that we think there could be a partnership there.
Does that mean it'd be open for hunting? Because usually Ducks Unlimited will
Correct.
fund those properties that are free fire zones for duck hunting.
It would most likely be managed, and I have a recreational side, but it would most likely be managed by Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and could allow hunting, fishing, but also hiking, biking, and equestrian uses.
And has your experience been with Ducks Unlimited, at least in Martin County, that you have a good dialogue where you could contain any possible overhunting?
It's important to note that this would, if we partner with Florida Forever, that Florida Forever would take title to the property, and it would be a state-managed property. So, I've only had a couple conversations with Ducks Unlimited, but it could be an option. It doesn't have to be an option, but it could be an option.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. So any property that has anything to do with FWC or with South Florida Water Management, they always allow hunting on it, do they not?
It would depend because of some properties with the Water Management District. Calpatioke has ownership in areas from the South Florida Water Management District. We have several properties that don't allow hunting, but ones in that area would be attached to a wildlife management or a wildlife and environmental area. Beth, do you have anything to chime in on that?
No, I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
In terms of the habitat quality, it's almost entirely natural, but it does contain a utility corridor and a small hunt camp. There is some invasive vegetation that's visible on aerial imagery, most notably old world climbing fern. There is a little bit of evidence of off-road vehicle use, but it's pretty limited. And overall, the area appears to be in very good condition. You do have a road next door, which could cause smoke management issues if you wanted to use fire as a management tool. And you have private owned lands on the west side of the area. But other than that, it's completely surrounded by other protected conservation lands. Here's your listed species. It does that in Martin County, we actually consider strand swamp, dome swamp, and mesic hammock to be rare habitats. And a very sizable chunk of the property are those habitats. So, you know, I would say close to half of the property would be considered to be a rare habitat here in Martin County. In addition, we have Florida sand-elk cranes, red cockaded woodpeckers, which is actually was not found on any of the other properties we're removing or we're reviewing today. And it found a pretty sizable chunk of the property could be habitat for red cockaded woodpeckers. In addition, wood storks and snail kites. In terms of recreational opportunities, it could be part of a linked trail system that goes from Hungerland into Corbett Wildlife Management Area. There is actually a wildlife crossing. It doesn't show up on this map, but right in about this area that goes under the bee lines. So it could have, that could be potentially used for hiking, you know, or biking. Probably not equestrian uses. The crossing isn't that big, but it could be used for some recreational access. In terms of development potential, it's somewhat limited. It's going to be outside the urban services area. It has the agricultural designation. It could potentially include 75 residential units. It would be difficult, though, considering how much of the property is wetlands, but they would be able to develop at about that rate if somebody brought in a development. And it's adjacent to other conservation areas and agricultural lands. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Public comment, please. Is there any public comment? Okay, let's go ahead to the members' comments, please. Dan, Vicki?
It's a relatively large chunk. It's
Yes.
a important one.
Yes,
All systems look good.
yes. Merritt?
You know, the condition and the listed rare habitats put it fairly high in the rankings on my list.
Thank you. Tom? Beth?
I guess I have a question about how the committee, I've forgotten since the last meeting, how we are ranking development potential. Are we ranking it high if it has development potential, or, yes, is that the case? Or
Great question. The way I'm doing it is the higher the number, the higher the potential.
okay,
In this particular case, where there's a lot of wetlands, but it's tricky because the wetlands regulations are changing as we speak. So it's, one has to gauge that accordingly.
okay.
I think there was a description in your manuals.
Yes, there is, but the trouble is we got a moving target because of what's going on in Washington.
Sure.
Good point, well made, Mike.
Yeah.
David?
Just to add that I personally know this property. My family leased it for our equine business for some time. This property does go completely underwater during our wet season, so we actually had to move the horses out during that period. So I would definitely say the development potential is really low. But I could see a lot of use in recreation and hunting. Before we had it, I know people in the community who used to hunt that and hunted it well, and we saw wildlife there when we were there. So the recreational use is definitely there, and a partnership with Ducks Unlimited would be favorable, I think, for that property.
Very helpful. Thank you, David. Any other comments? So if you could please rank it provisionally, members, and then let's proceed to the next property. If anyone feels they want to take a break at any point, please speak up in terms of the members. Okay. Mike, go ahead, please.
And on that note, we'll probably break for lunch at 12,
Okay?
I guess.
Yep, about an hour and 5 minutes. Yep.
Okay. So our third property is the J.R. Stewart land parcel. And this parcel is a little bit different. It's a 642-acre property. It's actually been listed for sale for some time. has large cypress and sluice systems. The important thing is it's actually already under conservation easement as a private mitigation bank. We were told by the realtor that they're trying to get that conservation easement removed, but the Southwater Water Management District owns the easement, and they indicated they had no intention of vacating that easement.
Can I just ask a question of Beth? How likely is that even with change of boards and all, that they would revoke?
I think it's pretty difficult. It's not an easy thing to revoke a conservation easement, because it was offered for development of something else.
But didn't that happen in Palm Beach County, Beth? Where the conservation easement was overturned? Yeah, it did. And so that's,
It's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
Palm Beach County protects their conservation easements now by having duplicate
yeah.
easements, between the county and the district, or the county and some other entity. So,
And what the owner is, what the realtor has said is that they opened it as a mitigation bank, but only got a couple mitigation credits. So they told me that they were going to remove it from the easement from 75% of the property for the areas that are not, they didn't use for the mitigation bank. Yes. That's just, I'm just repeating what the realtor said. But, and there's value in acquiring a property like this, even if it is already protected, just in that you could provide recreation and it could become part of a bigger manageable block. So I don't want to get too far. I'll proceed through the presentation. We can.
is there an opportunity to add another easement on top of the easement if the district is not willing to give up their mitigation bank conservation easement?
Well, I mean, I don't think the county would have, I don't know that the county would have a problem, if we were willing to buy something under a conservation easement, just keeping the conservation easement in place. I even mentioned because there's mitigation needs with SERP projects. So if we acquired it, could it then be used to mitigate, for wetland impacts for the C-23-24 project or whatnot?
Right. This is an interesting parcel with respect to the SERP project for the Loxahatchee project.
Maybe what we might do, let's finish your presentation,
Okay.
Mike, and then we can go into comments.
Sorry.
If it were acquired, it could be managed as a part of Hungryland. And as you can see, directly south and east of the area, you have Hungryland,
Who manages Hungry Lands?
the Fish and Wildlife Conservation
Okay,
Commission.
yeah, well, you said that before.
But it's actually, they lease it from the Water Management District in the state. This shows its location, and it is within the Palmar Acquisition Zone. It is within the Florida Forever program. However, it should be noted that Florida Forever sees this property as being conserved. So we wouldn't be able to get Florida Forever support to help acquire it. This shows its location in the Florida Wildlife Corridor. It's a part of that same segment. It's a part of that same cross-county greenway system. And it's also, pretty much all these are listed as a priority 2 by the Florida Ecological Greenway Network. It's a fee simple acquisition under the existing conservation easement, so might be difficult to find a funding partner for acquisition. I'm not saying it's impossible. We could approach the district. But it would be hard to get funding from a partner for it. There's little evidence of human alteration other than a ditch system that runs on the south and west side of the property. There's limited apparent invasive plants, and overall the area appears to be in excellent condition. It's adjacent to other tracts of large publicly held conservation areas and could be managed as a part of Hungryland. There's little in the way of surrounding development and no large-scale infestations of exotic vegetation. The reason why it's important with the little surrounding development is it would make introduction of prescribed fire easier on that property. Here's your rare enlisted species that doesn't list much in the way of rare habitats. And these are the common species that come up in Palmar with sandhill cranes, wood storks, and snail kites. In terms of recreational opportunities, FWC would be interested in managing it as a part of Hungerland. You could add hiking, equestrian uses, hunting, and fishing. And there's a possibility with one of the other properties that we're looking at today that you could create a connection between Harmony Ranch, which is owned by the South Florida Water Management District in the county, and Hungerland.
Mike, just a quick question.
Yes.
With recreational opportunities, how would you get into this ranch now?
It's,
You
Well, there
drive,
is
you
a
would
r-
drive in, or?
there's an access road to the south of the property, and you would not be able to drive in there, but, and it's very wet. So, you know, you will probably dry season, your feet are still going to get wet. But, you know, sometimes hunters don't care, you know, and sometimes people do the Ocean to Lake Trail all the time, and I see them spending a week with their feet underwater. So, you know, people will brave walking through wet areas for recreational opportunities.
Thank you, Mike.
The development potential is pretty limited due to the conservation easement and the fact that it's almost entirely wetlands. You can see on that map, you know, there's maybe 20% of the area are uplands, if even. And in order to develop it, the Water Management District would have to agree to remove the existing conservation easement. However, the fact that there is off-road vehicle use in the area could be problematic in this particular area. Any questions, comments?
So the question, Mike, if it's already preserved, then what am I missing that we would be buying? What's the real benefit by our buying it?
Well, the recreational access and the fact that you could add it to Hungerland and provide the public with the opportunity to go out there and enjoy it would be one. There can be an argument made that having it as a part of a larger protected system makes management easier. So we could, and in addition, right now, since the owner has only put a mitigation bank on a quarter of the property, you know, are they going to manage it as well as it would need to be managed? Does that make sense?
Yes, well, then the question gets down to price.
Right.
So it would seem to me that the price per acre would be a lot less. We're not going to be discussing that ourselves, but is that a safe assumption?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%, because that would go into the appraisal. You know, we're basing our offers on appraisals, and if it's already under a conservation easement, then it would appraise it much less. And I would guess that the realtor is basically trying to say, hey, we can get this conservation easement removed so we can jack up the price.
So who's selecting presumably the real estate broker is not selecting the appraiser?
The county has approved vendors that we use for all of our appraisals.
We have
Okay.
continuing service contracts.
Yeah, but I just want to be sure that there's no conflict. You could see where I'm headed with that one.
Yeah. I don't work for our real property division, so I can't really answer questions about what their policies and procedures are, but it's certainly, you know, important for them to have independent appraisal company.
Yeah, I mean, we have a fiduciary duty to be sure that the money is being spent prudently, so,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of public comment, please. Any comments from the public? Okay. Go around the horn. Dan?
Good.
Vicki? John Keeler?
Go ahead. It's in between two, it ties together two already properties that are publicly completes the area. It's a plus.
I mean, I would just say that clearly the development potential is little to none. I mean, you've got almost entirely wetlands and, an existing CE on it. So that low ranking, but I do see the benefit of acquiring it for management purposes and recreational opportunities. But again, that should be reflected, and these comments should help the board. That should be reflected in the price.
Yeah, and if it wasn't in such a unique location, if this was just west of US 1, near in Hope Sound somewhere, and then it probably wouldn't even be considered. But the fact that it's part of this big contiguous management system made me think that it should at least be reviewed by the ELOC to see if you thought it was worthy of a recommendation for acquisition.
Thank you. Dan? I'm sorry, Tom?
I'm with Jim. I think this would be a great property to buy at a certain price. Otherwise, it doesn't have any development potential, like Merritt said. It's already providing some sort of a flowway and for the area. So, yes, if the price is right, we should buy it. If it isn't, we shouldn't. And that doesn't come into this, I understand. But I think if we're going to rate this, I think that has to be like almost an asterisk for the Board of County Commissioners. Yeah, let's buy it because it does meet a lot of criteria, but the price does matter with this particular project.
And then you would probably compare it with other, that would be one where you would compare against other properties that are in the area, in terms of how you rank them, I would guess.
Yes. Beth?
Can you put the map up again, please?
Which one?
The, one of the first, this one. Okay, so as I said earlier, this does have a kind of unique relationship to the SERP project, and it was not included for land acquisition because it was already under conservation easement. But it's adjacent to this, what used to be a pepper farm is now a container nursery, if it's been converted yet. I don't know. It was sold to be a container nursery. And that is included in the SERP project to try to kind of reroute some of the drainage for that. So this could be helpful to that. It also is a parcel that connects to the parcel to the north, which I believe is included in the SERP project, in the IRL project.
That's correct.
Okay. So it does provide that connectivity, and it's a beautiful piece of property as well. So I think it's important, as Jim said, Tom said, that the commission is fully aware of whatever restrictions there are with respect to the price and the conservation easement, but that it should be ranked fairly highly.
Can I ask, if it remains in private ownership, could that create a potential issue in terms of the Loxahatchee SERP project?
If the conservation easement is given up, the development potential, I think, is low anyway because it's all wetland, but there's a pretty easy access to 711. So, is that the right number for that road?
I think so.
Yeah, I've forgotten. Yeah, so.
David? Yes. Okay. So if everybody could rank it provisionally, please?
Can I say one more thing? Tom Campini brought up the price consideration. Just as a businessman, I overall have interest and can be persuaded by the price considerations on all these properties. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the fact that we're supposed to ignore that.
Yeah, it's tricky because once we put a price tag on it, then it affects the negotiation that the county's going to have with the property owners. I think my feeling is that we have a fiduciary duty to assess the property as best we can. When it comes to the price tag, that's going to really be up to the county commissioners, I would think, and the appraisers.
Yeah, I tried to incorporate, that's why I had that cost per acre metric in there, but I think it was confusing.
Mike, I
Yeah.
think it would be helpful if you could real briefly tell us how the appraisers work and how much leeway does the county commission have to override the appraisals if they feel that way, or how does that whole system work?
I would probably have to bring somebody from real property.
Can you help on that, Sebastian?
I wish I could. I'm not a per se real property attorney, more in litigation, but I know that what I can tell you is I know that the county can agree to pay more than an appraised value if they find value in a certain property. There's additional steps they have to go through to do that. But I can tell you that the county does not regularly do such a thing. It's what appraised value is what is known that we pay and not
How
more.
many appraisals does a property need to have in order for it to be bought by the county? Is there one or two?
Yes, yeah.
Two, right?
I believe so.
And having been a student of government for a while now, and speaking to commissioners, they don't like to spend too much money over an appraised value.
Correct.
So I think they will probably adhere to whatever the appraisals come in with, except if there is a really great piece of property and they all feel that way. And because I think they just can't override it by a 3-2, it has to be a 4-1.
I believe that may be true.
So
Yes.
I just wanted to get that out there.
They did vote to allow us to go above appraised value for the acquisition of those lots in Palm Beach Heights previously, because we weren't competitive.
Because you weren't competitive.
Yeah, we could not, like I said, the appraised values were $1,500, maybe $2,000 an acre, and nobody is gonna
Only Zach.
sell their property for that much. So, so that can be used as a tool. I'll also say that the state Florida Forever program will only go up to 90% of appraised value. So,
So there's plenty of stopgaps
yes.
in the way.
There were a couple potential acquisitions that we did not actually bring before you because of what they were asking was so far outside the realm of what would be acceptable that to us it wasn't a willing seller.
Mike, could you just drill down that 90% of the appraised value that the state will not fund anything beyond? Could you just explain that a little bit
That's
more
the
fully?
Florida Forever's policy has been they'll only pay up to 90% of appraised value.
So that, let's say that that would be their share. How about if the county says we still want to do the deal?
That they wouldn't participate.
It'd kill the deal for okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the members? Okay, let's proceed to the next.
All right, well, now we have Elise J., which is the sister to that J.R. Stewart land property, in that it's just to the north of it. So here's that J.R. Stewart land property down here. And this is Elise J., which is a 322-acre cypress and slough wetland-dominated system. You can actually see all the cypress in here. All that white are cypress swamps. So it's a massive wetland system, and it's an important connector between Harmony Ranch and Hungryland, which is going to be a little bit further down here. And if acquired, it could be managed as a part of Hungryland. This shows where it is. This gets a little confusing because of we included it in our Palmar acquisition zone, but it's actually in the Sept footprint for the IRL South, but they call it the Palmar complex. You guys get all that? But for all intents and purposes, it's within Palmar. This shows its location between all these different areas. And in addition, it has been included in the SERP plan Once again, it's within the Palmar Complex, which is within the IRL South SERP project. And the importance of that has to do with the St. Lucie River and estuary to capture stormwater that is severely impacting the St. Lucie estuary. And if it was approved as an acquisition priority by the federal government in the 2007 WRDA bill, and state funds could be credited to the state ledger in the SERP cost share agreement. So there's a couple things that can get a little confusing to explain about that. Basically, anything that the state and the South Florida Water Management District spends on SERP, the federal government matches that. So in terms of like dollars, this could actually go to help complete other projects that are important to our region, such as the, what's the reservoir, Beth? The EAA reservoir?
Yeah, I don't,
Okay, yeah, so it can be helped, it can help to complete features that will also help to attenuate damaging stormwater runoff into our St. Lucie River estuary. Does everyone understand what I'm saying there? In addition to that, it's within the SERP natural lands component. So when SERP comes in and do a project, in some areas, they'll actually have to destroy good habitat, like to build a reservoir, like when they built the C-44 reservoir. So this program, the natural lands component, was designed to offset those impacts by acquiring other lands to be left in a natural state, I guess. It's within the Florida Wildlife Corridor. As you can see, this is its location. It's once again in this big contiguous block that we have running through our county. And it's listed as a priority 2 by the Florida Ecological Greenway Network. It would be a fee simple acquisition. Since the property is within SERP Natural Lands, it's possible that we could work with the Water Management District to be a funding partner, or since it's adjacent to Palmar, we could work with and get it added to the Palmar Florida Forever project and potentially unlock state funds.
But that wouldn't put it into the Palmar Water Control District.
Correct. No, it's a separate area. In terms of its habitat, the natural communities are intact. There's little evidence of disturbance, but there are some off-road vehicle tracks visible. There are some pockets of exotic vegetation, but overall, the area appears to be in very good condition. In terms of management considerations, it's bordered on the north and south by other protected lands. Even though there's some pockets of invasive old world climbing fern, but it wouldn't require a large investment in order to restore this area. Here's your listed species. There are bay gall, dome swamp, and strand swamp, which are all considered to be rare habitats. And that, once again, takes up a pretty sizable chunk of this property. And it lists Florida sandhill cranes, wood storks, and snail kites as being potentially found in this area. In terms of recreational opportunities, I mentioned this before, we could potentially create a trail link between Harmony Ranch and Hungerland. It could be used for hiking, hunting, fishing, and equestrian uses. And it is pretty wet, so there will be some issues in terms of providing recreational opportunities. It has an agricultural land use, which is 1 house per 20 acres, but it would be pretty challenging because, as you can see, that's about 95% wetlands. But based on our current zoning, you could get potentially 11 to 12 residences out there. And that's all for Elise J.
Any public comments, please? Okay, going around. Dan, please. Any thoughts? Vicki? John Keller?
Oh, really, another really good one.
Yeah, I like the property. I like the potential other comments.
Great.
Yes.
Mr. Campenny, where did he go?
Oh, he ran out the door.
That's the bathroom.
He took a break.
He's split. Beth?
Of course. This is in the IRL footprint. It is a really important piece of property because it is actually the breaking point where water goes to the north, to the South Fork, St. Lucie, as opposed to the Loxahatchee historically. Actually, the piece that we just looked at previously was kind of, can go either way. But yeah, this is included in Palmar because it would flow toward the South Fork as opposed to south. So
Very helpful.
very a hydrologic divide.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. David?
Yeah, I think this is a good move, especially with it being within the Sept footprint. You know, we're 25 years into that project. We need to do whatever we can to help with that, so.
Can you folks hear what David was saying?
No.
Okay, so just speaking to the mic next.
Oh, sorry.
Great, thank you. No further comment, everybody, please rank it provisionally. And then, Michael, next one, please.
I will say one more thing, that it is listed on Realtor sites as being for sale, so, yes.
Okay.
Our fifth project is SS Farms. So it's a 53-acre property. It's primarily improved pasture and is actively being ranched. So I had mentioned this before, but this is for an agricultural easement with the Rural and Family Lands Program. So in essence, they actually contacted us and asked us if we would review and for funding to help them acquire this property. And this was mentioned before, but the historic Jupiter Indian Town grade bisects this property from east to west. It falls within the Palmar acquisition zone. Once again, it is within the Florida Wildlife Corridor in this area right here. You'll see that it is connected to a lot of lands that have not been acquired, those. So I don't know if that factors into your thinking at all. Once again, it's an agricultural easement acquisition. It's being considered by the Rural and Family Lands Program for acquisition, and they requested a county contribution.
How much is that? Is it usually half and half, 40?
They're 50-50. Florida Forever is, requests less than 50, in terms of the Barbie Ranch, but they're pretty specific for the Rural and Family Lands Program requesting a 50% county match.
So, Mike, of our 50%, can we get funds? Does it have to be all from us, or can we say get Fed funds for 25%? We kick in 25%.
That didn't come up, but I would imagine you could use other funding sources.
Got it. Thank you.
So most of the property has been disturbed with improved pasture covering 60% of the property. There's extensive invasive plants and altered hydrology. I will say this photo is not of the actual property. It's just basically what I thought the property might look like. So
Interesting.
as an agricultural easement, there would be no county management responsibilities. So, but on the same token, unless there are, it's called environmental services, ecological services, unless they're included in the agreement that FDAX is working on, it probably would not be restored, and it certainly would remain as improved pasture with continued cattle ranching. Listed species survey, it lists kind of the same three: sandhill cranes, wood storks, snail kites, no rare habitats, and there are possible those rare species could be found in the marsh areas, but it's kind of doubtful because the habitat quality is pretty poor. This shows the location. One of the main benefits of this is we could potentially include a recreational easement to the Jupiter Indian Town grade. In fact, the county would probably insist that if you want money from the county to include put an agricultural easement on the property, that we'd like to get an easement through that property for the Jupiter Indian Town grade. And that would then allow hiking, biking, and equestrian uses.
Mike or council, question. So there currently would be, so there'd be an easement on this. Let's say that in the future, the county wishes to purchase the property outright, and at that point, it would be purchased. How would that work in terms of being able to use it for recreation and that type of thing.
We would be purchasing it subject to the easement, but since we would own fee simple ownership, I think the easement would kind of go away and we do what we want with it. But knowing, I mean, what else are we going to do with it than do a preservation? We'd probably do a better job than the easement of preserving the property, but it is publicly owned. It's owned by, it's owned by us. And we would have the right to do, trails or opening it up for the public. We could do, I don't see how we couldn't do both. Have the conservation but usually when you hold an easement over someone, a conservation easement over someone else's property, and then you go out and buy that property, now you own it, the easement usually disappears at that point.
Well, that would be, the easement would be with FDACs, so it would probably,
So then it would remain.
yeah, it would remain.
It would remain in that case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It has an agricultural land use, but an interim zoning. It basically means that the area hasn't been zoned. And it could be possible with the current land use to put 2 to 3 houses on the property, but it would have to be given a zoning and land use. And that's it.
Any public comment on this particular property? Anybody out there? Okay. Going around the horn. Dan?
I'm good.
Vicki? John?
No further comment.
Merritt?
No real comment. I mean, it certainly should be considered, but I'm not ranking it as high as some of the others with just the easement potential and the fact that it's already impacted.
Okay. Tom?
Nothing?
I have
Beth?
nothing.
David?
I have a question and a follow-up. So, do I understand right that we would be purchasing the development rights on this property and would remain in agricultural use?
Correct.
Okay, so, based on what I've heard from our community many times is that people in this community want to preserve our agriculture. And this would be a way of doing that with keeping this land on the tax roll, right? It would be reduced to its agricultural tax value. And then it would be managed by the rancher, the owner. So for those reasons, I think it's a good move. This is one of those that the community has said many times they want our farmlands preserved. So for me, this is a good move.
That's why we have you on here, to represent those agricultural interests, so.
Well, it's very important keeping these in the family is, the Barbie Ranch, perfect example of where it's being kept in the family. It's a really important thing for the family. And those of us who were present for that particular presentation know how important it was for that particular family. So I think, to your point, David, well made. Thank you.
And so one thing, and I'm just learning about ecological services, and you can offer to pay more than what you normally would in exchange for them performing certain ecological services. So that could be invasive plant removal, that could be plugging ditches to hold more water on your property. So there is a potential with some of these, and I don't know yet because I'm still learning this whole system, that we could use that as a tool to at least further some of the ecological values of properties that are to remain in agricultural use. So.
No, good point. And also, we're not talking apples to apples when it comes to the price tag. So it's going to, as we've discussed, it varies, maybe 50 cents on the dollar, maybe a bit more, but.
That's a good point. So Florida Forever, because their types of conservation easements lean more heavily in terms of protecting the natural system. So they're going to pay closer to appraised value than something that's just buying development rights.
Yes, so it's really in a different basket than most of these other properties. Again, so it's important to bear that in mind. So I may note that. So.
I add one more thing.
Yeah.
Just something I've observed from FDACS and the Commissioner of Agriculture is right now they are really rolling in conservation easements. They're rolling out moving on new properties. So they're under Commissioner Simpson, they're really eager to preserve these wildlife, these green spaces. So
Yeah, I didn't mention, so the 5,000 acre bull hammock was a agricultural easement with rural and family lands. That was going to be on our list to target, but they beat us to the punch. So,
Well, that's a good thing.
yeah, I know. So, but yeah, 5,000 acres, beautiful property that FDAX has now ensured will never be developed.
Yeah, and again, we're preserving these in perpetuity, and the easements are irrevocable, so it's highly material. Great, thank you. Any other comments before we proceed? John? No? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right, Project 6. So everything we've done before was Palmar. So now we're actually moving on to the IRL South acquisition area. So our property is Turnpike Dairy. It's a 488-acre property that is primarily improved pasture. So 84% of the property is improved pasture. And once again, this is for an agricultural easement with the Rural and Family Lands Program. It is adjacent to Alapata, which is to the south and to the east. This is Fox Brown Road here. This is 714 on the north side. It is within the IRL South acquisition zone. It's important to note that it was actually outside the boundaries of what I had originally drawn to be IRL South, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it shouldn't be considered as a part of IRL South. It just means that in my mapping exercise, I left it out. So I think it would be fair to assume that this property could fall within that acquisition zone, even though it's outside of it. It is adjacent to the Alapata Flats and SERP Natural Lands Program, which captures stormwater that is severely impacting the St. Lucie River estuary. In addition, the whole natural lands, offsetting impacts to natural lands within the SERP footprint by buying other areas. So if it was incorporated, we don't know, we don't have an indication from the Water Management District at this point whether or not it would be incorporated into SERP if it were acquired, and if they'd be able to use it for the state's ledger in terms of the SERP cost share agreement. It's possible, but I don't know one way or the other at this point whether or not it would be incorporated.
But you would try to get them to include it.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
This shows the Florida Wildlife Corridor. A small portion of it, 20%, is within the Wildlife Corridor segment between West Palm Beach and Central Florida. So, but you can see it's pretty surrounded by Wildlife Corridor areas. Once again, this is an agricultural easement acquisition. The property is being considered by the Rural and Family Lands Program for funding, and they requested the county match with a 50% county match. So in essence, this acquisition would not be going forward without having them as a matching partner.
So in theory, if, let's say the price is 50 cents on the dollar, we'd really be talking 25 cents on the dollar for us.
Correct.
Okay.
In terms of the habitat quality, once again, this is not a picture of the property, but 88% of the property is improved pasture. There are some degraded wetlands and a couple small hammock areas. And there is altered hydrology and invasive plant presence throughout the property.
Mike, what's the reference to cutouts in the map that you gave us in the handouts?
Right. So in some instances, and I'll go back to the original slide. So a lot of these, they don't want to put everything under an easement. So there's a cutout here for where there is like a dairy operation. So a chunk of the property is being left out of consideration for the easement.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Management considerations. As an agricultural easement, there would be no management responsibilities for the county, but the area will most likely not be restored and will remain as improved pasture with continued cattle ranching.
So just to rewind a bit on the ranking, so management considerations, one would give that a 10 in theory because we wouldn't be managing everything.
Well, I mean, you certainly could factor that in, but then also, management considerations to me are like restoring and improving the habitat. So in the same sense, you're not, a management consideration is that it's never going to be improved back to its optimal condition.
So it would be low.
So in that sense, so yeah, it's like both, and I don't know how you want to parse that in terms of, well, we don't have any management responsibilities, so that's good, but then on the other hand, it's not really going to be restored, so so I don't know how you would then rank that.
Well,
I would think it'd be low.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was, there was some confusion on the last lands we did on management consideration
Yeah.
because of the timeline. Was it ever going to be developed or not? And are we going to have to manage it or not?
Yes.
So my understanding would be low.
okay. I just want to be sure we're all on the same page on that. Merritt?
You can look at it two different ways. I mean, it could be a 10 if you're managing it for agricultural land, because the county, I mean, and you're comparing how much the county has to invest in managing it. That'd be closer to a 10.
But then
If you're managing it strictly for water quality and trying to restore natural conditions, habitat quality, it'd be a 0. Because it's not being managed for that, and it's going to follow the guidelines of the rural and family lands
well, not to
conservation
throw
easement.
confusion into this, but your role is to safeguard the citizens' investment through the sales tax. So then the question would be, do you weigh what you feel that the citizens' intent was when they went to the ballot box and voted on this in the first place?
No, understand, but we want to be sure that we're all on the same page, because I would,
Yeah.
Dan would have given it a 0, I would have given it a 10. So, Tom?
No, David had a question.
Oh,
I was the same way, we gotta look, as you just said, that we look at the intent of the voters, and again, I've heard many people standing outside before county commission meetings saying we need to preserve our aquifer recharge, we need to preserve our green spaces, but we also need to preserve our agricultural lands. So for me, I was looking at it as the county doesn't need to put any money into this.
Right.
So I would give it a 10. Because realistically, we cannot return all our agricultural lands to their natural state, 'cause then we would have no food to eat.
so I think we need to, amongst ourselves, be on the same page, because otherwise we're going to send conflicting signals to the Board of
Well, it
County.
screws up the score.
Yeah, as relates to the score.
Yeah, I
So-
agree.
Beth, go ahead, please.
Well, like I said, I think it would go back to the intent. So your take is that the citizens want agricultural lands, but somebody else might be like, well, really the purpose of this is to clean up water going into the St. Lucie River or to preserve rare habitat. So it's
So
kind
I
of,
didn't bring my manual with me, but could you go back to that can you get to the manual, or is that going to really mess you up?
all right.
We got
Because
it.
I think there was some guidance.
I'm
Criteria
at
is it?
slide 80. Yeah, let's.
Sorry about that.
No, it's
It's 5.
I got to remember where it.
Here it is, right here.
As the sage amongst us, Mr. Campenny, what would your counsel?
Well, I see it both ways.
Me too.
And so I'm going to fall more heavily on what Michael said, only because he's going to take these rankings and make some sort of sense out of them when he does his presentation. So if Mike thinks it shouldn't really be a 10, but it should be something else because of the way the county looks at the management of these lands, then I think we have to, give him the benefit of that. So I always had it as a low ranking, and I turned to a 10 after someone said, I think it was you, Dan, but then I said, no, Mike's right, it's a 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, you're meant to have different perspectives based on your role on this committee, so there could be some that think that something like this should be closer to a 10, and then you could think that it's closer to a 5 because of the values that you're bringing into us are different, and I feel like that's okay
From our perspective.
from our perspective, yeah.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I'm glad this was brought up, because I was having trouble with this one and the one prior of how to rank it as well. And at first I was at a 0, then I was at a 10, and looking at both of them, before you commented, Jim, I had settled my mind on a 5 for both of them, because I go back to what the citizens voted for, which was the specific language in the ordinance. And it's, again, there's no cost in the county for managing it, but it's not managed, it's not going to be managed to follow all the specific guidelines optimally for stormwater and water quality protection as it potentially could be, but it gets at least a 5 because there's zero cost in management.
Yeah, and I think, so I'm looking through criteria 5 management considerations. I don't want to have to read all this, but I don't think we really thought about when we came up with that some of these we wouldn't be managing because it was a conservation easement. This was strictly from how easy would it be to manage the property. So that's where that came from. So it mentions like larger properties surrounded by other public areas or lands under conservation easement would get the highest ranking according to what we put in here. And then towards the lower end, too small and or degraded to maintain or reestablish a normal ecosystem processes. So it was more about the habitat itself. But that being said, there still is something to be said for your perspective from an agricultural standpoint.
Jim?
Is that clear as mud?
Yeah, well, I think what is presented to the Board of County Commissioners, that without confusing things terribly, just point out that maybe they don't weight that one too heavily, but that's,
Well,
yeah.
I would disagree with that, but that's not why I raised
No, go
my
ahead.
hand. This, to me, is different than almost everything else we've rated today, only because it's not even anywhere near like Barbie Ranch was.
Right.
What we're actually doing is buying development rights,
Yeah.
pure and simple. We're not even
keeping
really.
land in agriculture.
Again, we're buying the development rights,
Yeah.
and it's not like it's unique property. To me, this is not a very unique piece of property. From what I read in the report, okay, so we're going to buy the development rights and somebody will keep it in cattle. But it doesn't meet a lot of the other reasons why we buy property, like habitat.
There's zero management for this.
Again, yes, we're not doing anything to it, but we're not really preserving habitat anywhere. We're not really preserving the wildlife.
Right.
We're not doing much. We're just taking it out of
And you're doing no fire management,
none.
none.
Yeah, but maybe on the referendum and ordinance, the way we structured it the way we did was to have both the capability to buy the land outright and the capability to do conservation easements. And we spent an enormous amount of time getting the conservation easements, as David and Rick will tell you, whereby we could do that. So we understood going in, and we presented to the public that this land may not be pristine land, that there will most likely not be public access, but we want to preserve it. And we want to preserve those farms for the families, bearing in mind that we're not paying 100 cents on the dollar.
Again, you're right, Jim, but from the way I looked at it from the very beginning was if we're going to have a conservation easement or even an agricultural easement, it would have to be on a piece of property that offered more than just, let's just buy a ranch. Let's just buy a farm in the county,
But that's not the way it was presented to the voters.
Well, I disagree with you on
Well,
that.
we did the deal. We spent 3 years pulling this deal together.
Well, I
And
disagree.
I don't care. Frankly, I don't care. So the way we did this, just to explain to the public, was the referendum and ordinance. We worked very closely with the farming community and other elements of the community. And it was very important, and why we spent an enormous amount of time getting unlimited capabilities for the conservation easements for this type of situation. So when the voting public decided to approve this referendum by 64%, they did so on the basis that we would be preserving these farms and that we would be doing so in perpetuity and irrevocably. Merritt, do you want to, or John Keller, since you were part of that?
Yeah, the big step that it prevents development,
Exactly.
So, I mean, I clearly heard that, just
plus.
slow growth, slow development from the voters, and they clearly spoke on that. You know, I mean, that's why we're ranking these and we have different columns. And we do need, and hopefully, I'm sure the county commission is going to examine conservation easements separate than fee simple acquisitions. And if they go further, they're going to examine rural lifestyle easements versus Florida Forever easements. But there is certainly value. If you look at, 488 acres is one of the stats for the size of this property, and I did have a question about that because there were two different numbers for the size of this property. But right now, if I look at just one house per 20 acres, the development potential is a 10. After this deal, the development potential is a 0. So, and, we just had the discussion on management potential. All of these can be discussed. You develop it to its full potential, and you've certainly impacted, aquifer recharge, stormwater. You've reduced, even though it's impacted pasture land, you've reduced a wildlife corridor to an extent. So, I mean, it meets the criteria of the ordinance that the voters voted on, that this is a way to, spending the money they approved for removing development potential. Not everyone is going to be like that, and that's why we have to, rank these accordingly. But we do need the board to examine our rankings, knowing that they're adjusted. Each one of us has adjusted them for
Right.
conservation easement or a fee simple acquisition. And I'm confident that they're going to examine it that way.
I just want to say that we have 10 ranking criteria, and taxpayers do not want to take land out of being taxed to keep it in agriculture unless the land also has some environmentally sensitive land attached to it. This was very hard for me because I think we're just subsidizing the private sector. And I don't think this is something that the taxpayers want to do.
Well, that's not what they voted on, Tom. Thank you very much.
Mr.
Are you cutting me off, Jim?
Yeah, hang on.
No, I don't think you are.
Okay, take it easy.
I don't think you are.
Okay,
So when I finish, I'll let you know.
got it. Thank you.
And if we're going to take people's money to buy these properties, it has to have more than just one reason, especially if we're buying a business or we're helping maintain a business. And that's fine. You're right, Jim. In a certain respect, from the beginning, we said we were going to have agricultural easements. But I don't think we said we're going to prevent development from occurring on a piece of property. Because if that's the case, let's buy Harmony, not Harmony Story.
Yeah,
We'll prevent 3,000 homes from being built.
4,200.
So I don't think that's what the taxpayers had in mind, or the voters had in mind. So I think we have to be very careful how we go about the preservation of agricultural land. Now you can take back the time.
Well, once again, you know, you have different perspectives and there are different things that you value. So I don't feel like there's any problem with you scoring this differently based on how you feel about agricultural easements versus, you know, conservation easements.
I do have a question, Mike or Sebastian. Say this happens, and there's a conservation easement on it. Right now, am I correct, it's zoned agriculture. So it's appraised as agricultural land and taxed as agricultural land.
I think we're skipping ahead.
That won't change, will it?
I mean, you could look at,
For the tax purposes?
it's certainly far outside of where Indiantown is expanding right now, but there's a potential, you know, Indiantown could work its way up that way. And, you know, but I don't know. As it is right now.
As it is now,
It's zoned for agricultural. Land use and zoning is agricultural, which would allow for 1 lot per 20 acres. So
how much are their taxes, hypothetically, would their taxes change, though, if there was a conservation easement put on it? They're still paying.
The same.
And they have an
taxes.
agricultural exemption to begin with, so, but I can't answer that question. So, in terms of how much tax savings there would be.
I believe it'd be the same. It would remain the same. Obviously, if this was turned into 23 residents, that would be a different story. The
Yes.
tax base would go up.
Yes.
But if it has an easement on it, it would remain
There would be-
agricultural, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
It would
But
still remain as an ag.
Paying taxes as ag
Conservation
now.
easement, and I think that you don't pay taxes on land that's under conservation easement.
I'd have to look into that.
Yeah. So I think the state passed, it might have been a constitutional amendment that land under conservation easement would not be taxed. We'll have to get back to you.
We'll get back to you on that.
To know that, because that would be helpful information. If we're taking it entirely off the tax roll, or we're just keeping it taxed as ag land as it is now, but we're just removing the potential of, you know, 1 house per 20 acres.
Shall we move things along?
Yes.
Yep, no, but that's a highly material question.
No rare habitat on the property. It could potentially be habitat for wood storks and sand-hill cranes in some of these marsh areas. Since there's an ag easement, there would not be a public access component to this project. We already talked about the development potential, and now for public comment and committee discussion.
Public comment? Okay. Dan?
I'm good.
Vicki?
I just wanted to bring up the fact that the location of the property itself is really worthy of consideration by this board and by the Board of County Commissioners. It's in a prime location. It's on the corner of Fox Brown Road and the Martin Grade. I just think it's valued property for the location and for the ag component that it brings to the table. That's really important for me. I come from an ag background, so preserving that part of our county, I think, is really, really important.
So Vicki, the development potential would be high, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I have it at 100%.
Okay. John?
Pretty much agree. I mean, it's a development question
Yeah,
that we're preventing,
yeah,
and that's a plus.
yeah.
Well, if you look, I have the map pulled up. So this is Bull Hammock right here. So that should all be green.
Yeah,
This is
it's-
all Alpata, so this is all green. So it does connect and buffer what's now protected lands.
Yes.
Yeah, the neighborhood is part of the evaluation.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I'd just say that this is why we have the separate columns and why we have a diverse, oversight board, is to bring all this together and to rank them in separate columns. Something like this is going to be higher on others. With recreational opportunities, it's going to be a 0. That's the point. And then we're going to total them all up and, try and, we're doing our best to oversight, but also assist the BOCC in prioritizing different deals to go forward with. Everything that's coming before us meets the criteria of the ordinance. And that's important to remember.
Good point. Tom?
Oh, I about said anything I have to say. Wait till I write it.
That is the power of the press, and if you don't get friends and neighbors, Mr. Campenny would like you to get it.
So I think my comments on this are not in the SERP footprint, but SERP adjacent, and wildlife corridor adjacent, which I would rank it fairly highly. And development potential, I think, also is very high because of its location, and development is moving west in this county. And then the other item, Mike, you said no rare or rare listed species.
Habitat. No listed habitat.
Oh, or habitats, okay, because I know that I have seen Sherman's fox squirrel on this property, but,
Yeah, the way, since this was all just a GIS exercise by FNA, it really was not able to pick up
oh, yeah.
the rare and listed species I was hoping to, from this evaluation. It's hard to evaluate based on the species from the report.
Right, there's not a lot of habitat though, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Caracara.
yeah, Kara,
As well, yep.
yeah.
David?
Yeah, I think I concur with the rest of everybody. I know this property. I know the people who ranch it. I know that they're great stewards of the land. They do consider the environment when they're making impacts to their land along with their agricultural decisions. So I think this would be a good project. Obviously, it's not habitat for these species, but it is a place where they live. I've driven that road so many times, and I always drive slow because you don't know when a herd of deer, a literal herd of deer is going to cross the road in front of you in that area. The wild turkeys, the sandhill cranes, they are abundant in that area. And the land, like he said, those were not pictures of that ranch. If you drove it, you would know. You know when you're driving past that property, it is a very pristine property. I know it's called Turnpike Dairy, but it is not a dairy. At one point it was,
Right.
but it is no longer. It is a beef operation. So.
Very helpful. Thank you. Great.
Sorry, I was seeing if Sarah
think
had
you
come
have
back.
a hand
Was there a hand up back there? Nope.
Oh, yeah. So it is getting close to 12, but we do have the next proposal, the family, the owners are here. So I would like to at least discuss that project before we take our lunch.
Is that okay with the members?
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So our 7th project is Whitworth Farms. This is a aerial of the property. It's a roughly 2,200 acre property. It's a mixture of pasture, pine flatwoods, and hydric hammock. An important thing to note is that if it were acquired, it would be a part of a protected land corridor that would extend all the way from Cove Road, because you have Halpatioke, down to the county line. There's like one 40-acre parcel that wouldn't be protected, but all that area would be protected from development all the way from Cove Road down to the county line, which is something that's important to mention. In addition, the property is bisected by the South Fork of the St. Lucie River. You can see the hammock-looking area. The river runs right through that area coming out of Halpatioke, and it would help to create an ecological corridor, and it is a part of the optimum boundary for Atlantic Ridge and Jonathan Dickinson State Park. This shows it is within the Loxalucy acquisition zone. You can see its location adjacent to Halpatioke to the north and Atlantic Ridge to the northeast and further to the east. Whitworth Farms is within what's considered to be the Palmar Complex, which is within the IRL South SERP project. So does everyone understand that? The Palmar Complex is within IRL South, but we're putting it in the Loxalucy zone. So, and the purpose of that is to capture stormwater runoff that is severely impacting the St. Lucie estuary. It was approved as a part of the 2007 WRDA bill as an acquisition priority, and funds could be credited to the state ledger and the SERP cost share agreement. And it could also help meet the intent of the natural lands component of the SERP project. It is within the Atlantic Ridge Florida Forever project boundary, so you can see it highlighted there. That area in purple is that property. It is within the Florida Wildlife Corridor as a part of that Greenway Network priority 2 for the Florida Ecological Greenway Network. We're most likely looking at a fee simple acquisition with possible funding partners from the South Florida Water Management District or the Florida Forever program. So a pretty sizable chunk, roughly half of the property is improved pastured, and there is altered hydrology in some of the areas, but overall, the property seems to be in, the non-pasture areas seem to be in pretty good condition with a pine flatwoods that have fire rotation. They've done some invasive plant removal on the property as well, so there's some pretty good habitat out there. Relatively large size of the property with protected conservation lands nearby would make management easier. And previous owner, or the current owner really, has removed exotic vegetation and used prescribed fire, which is important. It would be difficult. There are some challenges in burning a property like this in that it's directly adjacent to I-95 and the Turnpike. So that's something that would be, makes burning more difficult. And it would be hard to restore the pasture portions of the property due to the level of disturbance. There are several rare habitats on the property, including hydric hammock. Blackwater Stream is what I'm using for the South Fork of the St. Lucie River, which you can see on there. It has the hydric hammock attached to it. Dome Swamp, Strand Swamp, and Bagall Swamp is roughly 12% of the property. Listed species could include gopher tortoises, sandhill cranes, wood storks, etc. In terms of recreational opportunity, we could use it to create a potential trail connection between Halpatioke Park and Bridge Road. And we could route hiking, biking, and equestrian uses on the property as well. It could, if with further acquisitions, it could also create a link, a trail link between there and Jonathan Dickinson State Park. In terms of the development potential, the property is zoned for agriculture and is outside of the urban services boundaries, but according to our current land use and zoning, there could be 123 residences. And the extent of uplands and pasture lands and its location would make it a prime target for development. And that's it.
Public comment? Dan?
I'm good.
I'm good. This is prime piece of property for the county, for the board to consider for all of the reasons that Michael brought forward. I was able to tour the property, and it's a pristine piece of property with the river, South Fork of the St. Lucie running right through the middle. I think it's a high target for development. It brings everything to the table.
Sure does.
John?
Well, it's so close to the Atlantic Ridge State Park. I would think the state could be easily persuaded to participate in the acquisition of this piece of land,
Yep.
which adds to the attraction for me. I mean, it's It is a beautiful, I know that we all drive right by it. I know the piece of, land. It is a beautiful piece of land. But I would put this pretty high on our list somehow.
I would personally like to thank the family for doing this, preserving this, their role in preserving this land. But, Tom?
As opposed to the last one, this is what this was all about. This is a unique piece of property. John is right. This is something we should spend money acquiring.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think this one hits all of the targets for
I
the
agree.
referendum.
Yeah, just imagine driving north from Bridge Road on 95 and you're looking to the right and that's what you're seeing, you know, is so it's also very visible to the public.
David?
I agree that this would be, as far as the agricultural lands, this is probably one of the most important, you know, whether it be through an easement or fee simple, I think this is definitely a definition of what people want.
I agree.
Yeah. And very much what we intended when we went in starting this initiative. Okay, thank you. Any other comments before we break for lunch? Let's take a, what do you figure,